Perata. It's certainly an honor to be here with you this morning. But I'd like to say something that probably will seem funny, but today is the 52nd anniversary of the Brown versus the Board of Education decision that desegregated public facilities in the United States. And you might say, well, what's the relevance of Brown versus Board of Education to the longshoremen today? You might know that Thurgood Marshall was the attorney who represented the Brown family in that dispute. But what you may not know is that 10 years before that, Thurgood Marshall was the attorney for a group of men in a place called Fort Chicago. Fort Chicago in World War II was the largest loss of life on American soil during the war. And what happened was the United States Navy, rather than pay longshoremen what they were worth, decided that they would take African American enlisted men and have them load and unload ships, something that they were not trained to do. There was an explosion that killed 400 of those men in Fort Chicago. Fort Chicago is in Northern California. It's now called the Concord Naval Weapons Station. But those 400 men were not trained to be longshoremen. They had no knowledge of what they were doing, and they were not told what they were loading and unloading. So those 400 men gave their lives on the waterfront, just as the men who worked at this port, just as the men who worked at other ports. They were victims of a government attempting to get by on the cheap. So as I stand here today on the anniversary of Brown versus Board of Education, I ask you to add to the list of people who are survivors and the list of people who are victims the 400 African American enlisted men who by no fault of their own were loading and unloading ships, who died in a place where they shouldn't have died because work that should have been done by people who were trained to do it, the United States government attempted to get by on the cheap. And then to add insult to injury, the men who refused to go back and work after the 400 men were killed were court-martialed, and I'm proud to say it was just 2 years ago that we were able to have some of those court-martials overturned almost 60 years to the day after that took place. God bless you all, and thank you for being here. Remember Senator Perata.